The Trump administration says they are ramping up a mass deportation operation unprecedented in American history. But it turns out that even by their own data, they're floundering pretty badly. Just how does an administration going all in on immigration still manage to underperform? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. By the way, guys, you know there's one more day left of the Strike Gum buy two, get one free sale. So if you want the energy drink alternative, 0 sugar, 90 milligrams caffeine in each piece, made in the USA, veteran owned. If you need that extra boost and are tired of spending $5 on these, get yourself some Strike Gum. Link is in the description. Okay, so here's what I want to point out. The Trump administration is planning on ousting a bunch of field office directors of ICE. And that's because they essentially are just mad at them. They want ICE to do more stuff like Border Patrol is doing. Now, you might have seen the videos online of Border Patrol agents in cities not on the border, in which they are oftentimes arresting people in parking lots, in neighborhoods, and they actually end up spending a lot of their time fighting protesters who obviously are like, hey, bro, the border's that way. And this has become really... But for the Trump administration, they actually love this. And we'll talk a little bit in a sec about why they are so in love with all of these viral videos of highly aggressive Border Patrol agents. Again, not leaving the border kind of undefended. But according to the administration's own data, a lot of these field office directors at ICE are saying, hey, we're ICE. One, you're giving Border Patrol our job of interior enforcement. But two, like, we have agents who have very specialty roles. We are investigators. We are 1811s. We are not roll them up guys. We're meant to investigate smuggling networks. We're going to take down criminal networks. We're going to take down people, trafficking humans and employing them. Like, that's what we do. So the fact is that doesn't work for Stephen Miller and the White House. So they are going to be firing all of these AFODs and literally replacing them with CBP officials. Now, here's the insane part buried at the bottom of the article. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller told Fox News on Wednesday the White House was setting a goal for ICE to arrest 3,000 migrants a day, far above an earlier 1,000 a day arrest quota, right? Miller, of course, believes this is absolutely possible. Miller and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem threatened to fire the bottom 10% of regional ICE officials based on their total arrest numbers. Now, you may say to yourself, well, if your goal is just arrests, well, doesn't that mean that there's an incentive for these guys to actually arrest protesters and citizens and just random people? And you'd say, yeah, exactly. And why does Stephen Miller want to arrest even more people if they can't deport the ones they have? It's a lot of good questions, right? In fact, from a couple weeks ago, Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, said the administration had deported nearly 200,000 people in 4 months. But that total appears to lag behind President Joe Biden's deportations, who deported in the same period in 2024 nearly 300,000 people. So Stephen Miller likely absolutely losing his mind. And because Stephen Miller has never run an organization before, he doesn't understand what it means to use throughput, right? And this is where the 7 years I spent in the Department of Homeland Security come in and why you should listen to me, right? So we can dig into some data here, particularly around deportation numbers. So the detention, right? So here's what happens when ICE, who usually is supposed to do interior enforcement, detains someone who is not in the U.S. illegally, right? They are due for deportation because some people are in the U.S. illegally and they say, hey, actually, I have an asylum case pending and you can't deport me at least until I get my day in court. But some people say, hey, final order of deportation issued. You're now detained. What happens? Well, you're arrested. You're sent to an ICE detention facility where you remain in custody, not in criminal detention, but you're in U.S. custody. You can't leave while the U.S. says, hey, you're an El Salvadorian national. We're going to arrange a flight for you to El Salvador. We're going to talk to the El Salvadorian embassy, see if you really are who you say you are, see if the El Salvadorian embassy is willing and ready to receive you, see if there are other constraints or concerns that you have, right? And generally, the average stay in ICE detention, or when I was at DHS. So again, basically second Trump, first Biden, essentially. The average stay in detention for a migrant was like 14 days, right? And you had some edge cases that were like really long. For example, sometimes we would detain someone where their home country would say, hey man, this guy, we convicted him of like a double murder in like 2006 and like he got out, but like don't send him back here. Like we won't take him because he's a criminal. And the US goes, well, we're not going to like, yeah, he served his time. The double murder wasn't in the United States. We can't charge him again, but we can't let him go. He's a double murderer. So then they go, and those people tend to spend a long time in detention. You also have people who are like, hey, you can't send me back to El Salvador because I am a political dissident. And the administration goes, well, okay, well, where can we send you? And, that becomes its own fraught thing. But the point is that this is the throughput: arrest, detention, deportation. And deportation is often done via what's called ICE flights, right? So you have to literally fly people in. So what does that mean? That means that even if you arrest a lot of people without a corresponding increase in detention beds and deportation infrastructure, namely more ICE agents, because remember, every person that like calls the El Salvadorian embassy, that's an ICE agent. It legally has to be. And so that is facilitated, right, by ICE agents. And so if you don't have those things, if you are just arresting people, but you don't have the detention beds, right? And here's the thing. In the beginning of 2025, there were 41,000 people in ICE custody. By mid-March, that number was 46,000. Here's the problem. That 50,000 ICE detention bed capacity, that's the same ICE detention bed capacity that they have had for 8 years. They have not increased detention capability whatsoever, right? And that is the fundamental problem with Stephen Miller, with all of these ghouls in the White House. They don't actually know how to run things. And when someone like an experienced ICE field office director says, hey man, we're arresting all the people we can detain in our field office, like, what else do you want? Make us more detention beds and maybe we can detain more people. Or maybe we should have a target list, right? And so the administration is just like, well, no, just arrest people. And they go, well, the judge is going to just tell them to let us go. We'll have to let them go because we don't have anywhere to put them. It's the reason why you have this fucking punchline, right? Where the mass deportation operation is underperforming a literal man with dementia. Like, that's the insane part. By the way, I want to point out that and here's the stats. Here's the official stats. This is all kinds of repatriations. This is from the Migration Policy Institute, a think tank about immigration. Here is all of the repatriations, all the people who are sent back in various capacities. You can see that during the Biden era, Biden was mega deporter in chief. But you can also see that even compared to Trump 1, right? Look, you can see during Trump 1 that even if you ignore Title 42, the U.S. Biden era deportations, again, the last complete year they have data, actually exceeded. Biden deported more people, even if you exclude Title 42, in 2023 than Trump did at the peak of his first term. And you can see that Bush, Clinton were absolute fiends for deportation. You can see again that you have lower removals by agency basically during the COVID crisis, but that's not really a shocker. And you can also see again that the numbers here, right? Here's 600,000. You can see the peak of Biden in 2023. And by the way, when the 2024 numbers came in, because this one says it's only through February, so it's only the first 2 months, Biden crushed these numbers too. So it is humiliating for the Trump administration that their only goal, the thing they are going all in on, and the price that they have paid, I want to point out, is insane. One, I had to drop this one too. CBS News, which by the way, now owned by Trump ally David Ellison, is saying that, let's see if we can find it here. Yeah. That the criticisms of Border Patrol agents operating in Home Depot parking lots and car washes, critics accuse the agents of being heavy-handed and arresting immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally without criminal records, which is not the criticism. The criticism is that they are arresting U.S. citizens. Here, for example, is detentions of people who are known to the media as citizens who were detained and who are detained. Dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of U.S. citizens, often detained in pretty bad situations, right? Including U.S. citizen children who cannot legally be deported, right? You have just U.S. citizens caught up in deportations, just absolutely, right? In one instance, ICE appeared to detain a U.S. citizen twice, a pregnant U.S. citizen twice, arrested on a municipal right? She would be released only if she turned in and surrendered her husband, which is turbo illegal. She has no contact with her husband, stated the agents were using her as bait for him. The agents threatened to arrest other members of Medina's family unless she helped them detain her husband. ICE then pursued and engaged Medina 4 different times, repeatedly detaining her to gain access to her husband, right? You also have, of course, a bunch of U.S. citizens, actually elected representatives, who are also detained, again, in some cases for doing absolutely nothing. Visiting a protest, which is constitutionally protected activity. So all of these things, and by the way, they also literally rewrote the Constitution to do this, right? The Trump appointees under the Supreme Court invented something called a Kavanaugh stop. And what a Kavanaugh stop says is that if someone does the following things, right? If you're a U.S. citizen of a certain race or ethnicity, i.e. not white, speak Spanish or English with an accent, are present at a bus stop, car wash, tow yard, day labor pickup site, agricultural site, and do some type of work that, regardless of whether you're a citizen or an immigrant, you are now subject to warrantless search. Now, normally, if a cop wants to search your stuff or check your ID, the Supreme Court has said you need to have probable cause. You need to have a probable cause that a crime has been committed. But again, existing while Hispanic, speaking Spanish, existing while at a car wash, or doing day labor work or none of those things are crimes. So you could be just a U.S. citizen doing regular stuff, and then Kavanaugh says, well, they call it Kavanaugh stops because basically the Supreme Court wasn't allowed to write legal reasoning, but Kavanaugh did drop this casual drop, and so they're called Kavanaugh stops. So you're allowed to be Kavanaugh stops. Even Kavanaugh says, these stops are for individuals who are legally in the country. Questioning in those circumstances typically brief, and those individuals may promptly go free after making clear to the immigration officers that they are U.S. citizens or otherwise legally in the United States. Which implies that these citizens need to carry ID with them at all times. So again, if you look a little Hispanic, or you have an accent, or you work at the wrong job, you, as a U.S. citizen, are required to carry your passport or proof of ID. But if you're, white or black, you don't have to. And the result, of course, ranges from everything from the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, who went to an ICE protest. ICE said he committed trespass and ignored warnings to remove himself from the detention center. But in fact, what really happened based on video evidence is that he attempted to join a congressional delegation conducting oversight, was denied entry by an ICE official, then exited the secure area of the facility and returned to stand on public property. Then the agents came out, handcuffed him, and dragged him back inside. So a brief detention where they're then promptly free to go. Right? Another citizen born in Texas, Joe Botello, literally told ICE, "Hey, I'm a citizen, and here's my documentation." And Noam herself was personally present when he was detained. Federal agents still forced their way into his home at 5:30 a.m. Noam posted a video of his detainment saying HS, Homeland Security, she means HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, took violent offenders off the streets with arrest for assault, DUI, and felony stalking, which is fine, but that's not what they arrested him for. In fact, Botello said there was no crime committed. Noam did not clarify or posting his arrest and detainment, and that Bello was an innocent citizen who was not charged with any crime, right? So, again, these are not brief stops where they're free to go. They are lengthy arrests with long periods of detention. So we've managed to attrit basic rights, freedom of search and seizure, we managed to attrit the concept of equal protection under the law. Right now, if you look a certain way or work the wrong job or speak with an accent, you're a Class B citizen. Carry your documents on you at all times, Class B citizens. So in exchange for all that, we got, again, fewer deportations than even the Biden administration. The question is why? There's a why. And the why is pretty simple. This sounds like leftist TikTok slop, but I'll explain myself. The cruelty is the point. The viral videos are the point. The tear gas is the point. The children screaming for their parents as they're dragged away is the point. It's because the real victory that the Trump administration claims they've achieved is what they call self-deportations, right? They offer people $1,000 to simply go back home and apply legally and not get a bar for re-entry, right? Which is actually, again, that part I actually think is not a bad deal, but you see how it incentivizes actually people to enter the country and then self-deport for $1,000 and then re-enter the country and self-deport and like do that 15 times and farm like a lot of money. That's fine. But the idea is that by every time these videos of hyper aggressive tactics, the videos of migrants getting hurt while being arrested, the videos of, federal agents with plate carriers and AR-15s, like arresting people in an H Mart parking lot, those are meant to scare people into leaving of their own accord. The fear, the cruelty, it's not about enforcing the laws. The effect they're trying to achieve is terror, right? And again, I'm not saying that as like a feel-good thing. I mean, that's explicitly the strategy, because Joe Biden, right? You notice they didn't publicize this. In fact, they did so little publicizing and so little discussion of Biden's deportations that he got accused in the election of running open borders. Literally, Trump sat there on the Joe Rogan podcast and said, Biden's the open borders president. And because it was seen as so politically mean, right? Like a Democratic president is never going to sit there and be like, yeah, I'm glad we deported all those people. Because of that, they were so quiet about it that they never got the credit, right? But it didn't achieve a deterrent effect. Well, it did, but the idea, at least the Trump administration, the second Trump administration's idea, is to say, listen, we don't need the arrest to result in a deportation. Again, they're not expanding deportation. They're not expanding deportation capabilities. They just want to arrest people, be rough, be mean, tear gas people, turn body cams off, beat them up, rough them up, do it in front of their kids, do it outside of a courthouse, do it in a hospital, do it in a school, because they should be afraid. Fear, terror, that's the emotion, and they want them to leave the country, right? That's the idea. Now, the question is not, should we enforce our laws? The question is terror a good mechanism? Do you think that it is aligned with American values to have a terror-based law enforcement system? Right? Now, certainly, I want criminals to be afraid of committing crimes, right? But what I don't want is, I don't want murderers to murder people because they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to be put on trial. They don't want to be put in jail for life, right? Convicted by a jury of their peers. But if you told me, hey, we actually in this country deter murder because we flay murderers alive, we'd all say, well, that's wrong because we can't, it's not justice. That's just terror. That's just cruelty masquerading as justice. And so the idea that the aggression needs to be ramped up to 50, knowing full well these people aren't going to get, there's no detention beds for them, is kind of stomach turning, right? And that is the reason I'm kind of grossed out by these things. Again, it's not like there's a way to deport 300,000 people, 600,000 people a year. Joe Biden did it. He did it, and literally nobody said boo about it. So why all this? You know why. You know why. Anyway, guys, thanks to GMAC Club, Henry Roosier, James Porsche, Paul Peter Fucci, and all of our Lieutenant tier members. Appreciate you. See you in the next one. Cheers.